All right, have a look at this graph here behind me. So you can see clearly there are two things going on in this graph. This is physiology of power. Clearly, this blue graph is more smooth and efficient than this red graph here. And so what I'm showing you here is the difference between a powerful physiology and a physiology that is kind of stopping and starting. Welcome to the ACME series. Today we're going to be talking about the physiology of power. And so I want to center this entire thing around, the big picture, which is you have to have a physiology of power, but also specifically, I want to talk about the state we call coherence. Now, remember, this is all very cutting edge. These are mechanistic models. You have to have a physiology of power from the Performance Triad, right? So we've got focus on what you want, choose positive emotions, have a physiology of power. So what does that mean? Well, big picture, that means that your physiology's got to be working with you. So you want big goals, you need lots of energy, creativity, imagination, clear thinking, problem solving skills. You want your physiology to be supporting you in that. So there are a number of things we do to create a physiology of power, right? There are things we eat, things we drink, things we do or don't eat, things we do or don't drink, things we do or don't smoke, things we do or don't exercise, things, muscles, aerobics, whatever. So all of those physical components contribute to a physiology of power. And one of the most important things you need to remember is that you need to keep track of what enhances the power of your physiology, because what works for you might not work for me, and vice versa. And this is one of the big problems we have on the planet today, because somebody will try a diet or do an exercise or choose a lifestyle, and they will expect it to be blanket. You should do this because I'm doing this, or you shouldn't do this because I'm not doing this, or that's bad, or this is good, or bad, right, wrong, whatever. It's important to step back, and sure, you can try something that someone else is doing, and if it works, great. But if it doesn't work, that's okay too. And this is important both when you are changing something in your life, but also when you're trying to change somebody else's life, because you have no control over what someone else is going to do. And that's an important thing to remember. So in this case, physiology of power, keep track of what contributes to the power of your physiology, and practice that and be dedicated to that and focused on what you want instead of away from what you don't want. Now, all that being said, I want to talk today specifically about the physiological state of coherence, because it is an important factor in a powerful physiology, and it's easy to learn, and it has demonstrable advantages in lots of studies around the world. Now, a lot of the research, and even the diagram I showed you earlier, comes from the Institute of HearthMath. And I work closely with HearthMath for a number of years, probably, well, in fact, Think or Sync had a huge contribution from Dr. Roland McCratty, who's the director of research at HearthMath. So HearthMath and I go way back, and I am indebted to them and the work that they do. They're an institute in California, and they assimilate research, and they do their own research, and they do a lot of quantification and qualification of what I'll call the mind-body connection, specifically as it relates to coherence. So I want to talk about the state of coherence today, because when you are in a state of coherence, all the HearthMath data shows that you perform better, right? You have faster reaction times, better decision making, et cetera, et cetera. And there are a number of studies. We'll probably throw some studies in the reference here. And so HearthMath puts out all this research, and then people like me, we pull it together. And what I can tell you is that the state of coherence is a state you want to be in. And it is a state you can willfully put yourself into. And it's very easy. I mean, there are a number of other people and organizations out there working in this realm, but I really like HearthMath's approach because it's easy to access and easy to understand. Now, a little bit of background on the state of coherence before I teach you how to shift, because this is another altering technique, and that snap out of it. So this is another altering technique there. So the state of coherence measures basically the connection between the heart and the brain, right? And so these two systems in your body are constantly communicating, heart, brain, heart, brain. And the state of coherence is basically when they're synchronized. So I'm going to, again, I'm going to try to avoid all the technical terminology here just so that you can sort of understand it. And the graphs that I showed you earlier, they are measuring the heart rate variability of the individual. So remember the nice sine curve of the blue graph, or the jagged, crazy, erratic curve of the red graph. What that graph is plotting is the heart rate variability of the individual in the study. Now, what's the heart rate variability? Well, the heart rate variability is the sort of beat to beat difference or variability in your heartbeat. So everybody who works out or goes to the gym thinks that if you take your pulse and you multiply by 6 or by 10 or whatever you do and get your beats per minute, that's a static number, that your heart rate is a static number. So, if I'm working out, I want to be minimum 130 beats per minute or whatever. That's not a static number. And in fact, if you look at an ECG of someone's heartbeat, you'll notice that each time the heart beats, there's like a different amplitude and frequency of that heartbeat depending on the body's adjustment to the environment. So the cardiovascular system is always responding to the environment, and that's reflected in the heartbeat. And so it's not a static thing. So your heart beats right now, and maybe that's equivalent to, 75 beats per minute, but the next heartbeat, it might be a little bit faster. And so that one, if you extrapolated for a minute, would be more like 77 beats per minute. And then it gets faster, 80 beats per minute. And then it comes back down, 77, 78 or whatever, and then 75, 72. And so over time, you average that out for 60 seconds. That's what, we think of as heart rate when we're in the gym. But the variability is actually really important. The difference between each beat is very important. And in fact, when you're born, you have a great deal of variability. So infant babies have a huge HRV, or heart rate variability. And as we get older, that variability tends to become less and less, and our heartbeat tends to be more uniform. That's actually not a good thing. Just so you know, heart rate variability, keeping your heart rate flexible and variable is a key factor in maintaining health and wellness. So when we plot the heart rate variability, so when we plot the extrapolated points, so the one heartbeat, which would have been 75 beats per minute, and the next heartbeat, which would have been 77, and the next one, which would have been 80, and so on. When we plot those points, and then we draw a line between those points, those are the graphs that you were seeing when I was showing you those graphs from earlier, right? So that's a graphing of the heart rate variability or beat to beat differences. So just remember, right? So what you're seeing is the heart rate variability and the beat to beat differences. Now, when you plot this, when the heart and the brain are in coherence, it's going to look like this blue graph. And when they're incoherent, it's going to look like this red graph. And so it's a no-brainer. You want to be coherent. That's end of conversation. You want to be coherent. And so how do you do it? Well, HearthMath has a number of techniques, but I want to teach you a very basic, very simple technique that is sort of the foundation, if you will, or the grandmaster technique of all of their techniques, which is called heart-focused breathing. So heart-focused breathing is the way in which you would willfully create the state of coherence. Now, a couple of things about the heart-focused breathing. You'll notice that it's breathing technique. You've probably learned some breathing techniques. They're all great, just so we're clear. But breathing is an important component in self-regulation. That's why you've learned a technique maybe in yoga or meditation or whatever. So this is another breathing technique, and it's very important, and it's universal. It's universally recognized around the world that breathing is an important component in self-regulation. So that's a clue. Now, even think about it. When you were a kid, right, and got in a fight with your cousin or something, and your grandmother pulled you guys apart, she would say, stop and take a deep breath, right? She would say, stop and take a deep breath. And she would also say, well, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you what she used to say, because I want you to do a quick baseline before I tell you the secret of what your grandmother used to say. So while you're sitting there doing whatever you're doing, hopefully just doing nothing, just watching this video, I just want you to baseline your normal breathing rate. Like, how quickly do you breathe? No big deal. There's no significance whatsoever. Each in and out breath is one breath. So in, out is one breath. In, out is two breaths. In, out is three breaths. And you can even pause the video right now and count your breathing rate for a minute. So pause the video right now and just count how many in and out breaths do you do in 1 minute. So go ahead and pause. Okay, welcome back. So whatever that is, write that number down. That's your breaths per minute. Okay, now I want to tell you a few statistics about your breath per minute. How many of you, just watching this video, had a breath per minute of, say, 12 or higher? So 12 breaths or higher per minute. Congratulations. If you open a physiology textbook, med school or something, you'll discover that the average adult breathes, 12 to 20 breaths per minute. Congratulations, perfectly normal. Every other text on breathing will say, nah, that's actually chronic hyperventilation. And so other texts on breathing, like yoga texts, meditation texts, and things like that, will say that anything above 12 is chronic hyperventilation. Now, hyperventilation is, the breathe in the paper bag, fight or flight, and saber-toothed tiger or whatever. And so that's like obvious acute hyperventilation. But what's chronic hyperventilation? Well, it's like just a little bit of hyperventilation, not something that you notice, but it's like elevated. And what's happening is it's secretly activating your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response, which is fine if you're being attacked, but not so fine if the attack is coming in the form of rush hour traffic or airplane turbulence or something like that. And so what's happening is we are putting ourselves in these situations where our nervous system is activated in fight or flight when it doesn't need to be. That's using our resources, and that is not a physiology of power. So all breathing techniques have to do with this breath rate. So your grandmother, there you are fighting, right? And she says, stop and take a deep breath and count to 10. Okay, every grandmother on the planet says count to 10. So that's about 6 breaths per minute. In, out, in, out, in, out. Now, you will notice this 6 breaths per minute shows up in all kinds of texts on breathing. It's a magical number, because what it is doing is it is signaling to your body that to go into what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, or to slow down this stress response so that the body can relax. Now, in the technique I'm going to teach you, is taught by the Institute of HearthMath, 6 breaths per minute isn't as important as just slowing your breathing down. So much slower than you normally breathe is critical, okay? And the reason I'm teaching you the HearthMath technique is because there's an element in this technique that is emotional, which is gratitude. Now, remember from the previous video, right? The previous 2 videos, actually, the Performance Triad, focus on what you want, choose positive emotions, have a physiology of power. So the HearthMath technique actually incorporates this positive emotion into the technique, which in my opinion, rounds out the Performance Triad. So in order to do that, you have to focus on something that activates your gratitude. So activating a feeling of appreciation or gratitude is critical in the heart-focused breathing technique. So these 2 components, one is physical, slow down your breathing, and the other one is emotional, activate a feeling of appreciation or gratitude. And what I know, if you are able to successfully activate that feeling of gratitude, it means you're focused on what you want because you're grateful. And so therefore you've completed the Performance Triad. So this technique is a powerhouse because it in and of itself is a microcosm of the Performance Triad, but it puts you into a state of coherence, which is a physiology of power, right? So again, pause. So I'll lead you through 1 breath. And then what I want you to do is pause this video and continue to breathe like this for about a minute. Okay, so it's going to be, we're going to do it like this. We're just going to go breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now do that again, but imagine breathing in and out of your heart. 2, 3, 4, 5. And breathe out through your heart. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now do it again. Breathe in through your heart, but this time activate a feeling of appreciation or gratitude. 2, 3, 4, 5. And out through your heart. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now do it again. Breathe in through your heart and activate a feeling of appreciation or gratitude for someone or something in your life. And breathe out through your heart and try to send that gratitude. Try to send it like a wave. Do it again. Activate that feeling of appreciation or gratitude. And breathe out. Now go ahead and pause this video and do that for about another minute. Great. Now welcome back. Do you feel differently? I bet you do. Here's what happens after about 100 seconds. This is research, again, graciously shared with me by the Institute of HearthMath. This is research as to what happens to your physiology after about 100 seconds. So there you are in an incoherent state, which we would correlate to the emotion of frustration. 100 seconds of heart-focused breathing, and notice the shift in the body's physiology into a state of coherence. So that's a real impact to your physiology by willfully practicing that breathing technique, breathing slower than deeper than normal, and activating a feeling of appreciation or gratitude. I am deeply grateful for the Institute of HearthMath for teaching me that. Now, one other thing, for those of you who are a little bit left-brained like I am, very linear, right? You might think you're feeling gratitude when in fact you're just thinking about being grateful. And this was a big learning for me, was that thinking about being grateful and feeling the appreciation or gratitude are two different things. So you need to have a way in which to measure that. And what's amazing now with all the technology is that now we can start to do these things on our phone. So HearthMath has an app called Inner Balance. And they sell this sensor. I don't sell it. This is a HearthMath sensor. And there are other companies that, by the way, that do this. I just use HearthMath, so it's your choice. But what you can do essentially is put this on your ear and then use the app. Now, this won't make you coherent. You have to do the breathing. You have to do the gratitude. But this will actually tell you whether or not you're achieving coherence or not, because it will take the pulses and do the math, right, and all the complex stuff through this sensor connected to your phone, connected to the app, and there's a whole bunch of stuff here. And I don't know how it works. I'm not the technical person. But if you do that, you'll be able to track whether or not you are actually doing what you think you're doing. Are you actually impacting your physiology to create a physiology of power by increasing your coherence? So this is a really important practice. So the physiology of power is very important, and we're going to come back to it again and again and again. So the Performance Triad, this video sort of rounds out the Performance Triad, right? So we've got focus on what you want, choose positive emotions, have a physiology of power. Practicing coherence and putting yourself into coherence is a key factor in having a physiology of power, because what happens is you increase your resiliency to unknown events and change and chaos. You increase your decision-making abilities, your creativity, and your reaction times, and so on. So a physiology of power is a very important component in the Performance Triad. So start to practice this. You don't need the app or the sensor to practice. You can start right now. But if you do want to get it, at greatnessu.com, actually, greatnessu.com/virtual, there are a bunch of links to resources. It's all free, but I've also linked to the HearthMath site where you can get that sensor. Now, I have nothing to do with HearthMath. This is their product, but I believe so strongly in it that people wanted to be able to get it. So it's there at greatnessu.com. By the way, download anything at that site. It's all for you to be able to reveal your greatness. Now, if you got something out of this video or any of the other videos, then please hit subscribe and make sure to like, share, or comment so more people can get access to this info, because the more that you like, share, or comment, the more it proliferates. So please do that while you're out there practicing your coherence and revealing your greatness.